So journalism is trying to shift and cover communities more fairly that in the past may not have received a lot of attention or may have been covered unethically. And it can be a joy to find a story that deserves to be told and try to report it accurately and be part of that shift. Like Clara, who traced how it took over 50 years for Native American ancestral remains to be repatriated from Maryland to the Pawnee Nation in Nebraska. It's a pretty interesting story. So over 50 years ago, an unknown archaeologist found Native American ancestral remains in Nebraska, and somehow they ended up in the hands of the Maryland Historical Society in the 1970s. In 1990, there was a federal law that required and facilitated the repatriation of Native American ancestral remains across the country. A few years later, a staff member at the museum found those ancestral remains and started the repatriation process, but for some reason, when she reached out to the Pawnee Nation, she never heard back. So the ancestral remains stayed in a storage room in a Maryland museum for years until 2021, when a collection specialist finally and once again found the ancestral remains and completed the repatriation process. Last September, a Repatriation Act officer from the Pawnee Nation drove a jeep across the country to pick up the ancestral remains and bring them back to Nebraska, and in November they were finally reburied. The exact location remains kept secret so that nobody else disturbs the ancestral remains. A member of the Pawnee Nation reached out to Clara and thanked her for how she told the story, and while the point of journalism isn't to make whoever you're covering happy, it can be nice to know that you did it mindfully and respectfully.